Reimagining Success, episode 190.
You're listening to Reimagining Success, the podcast where we help you reimagine your future, designing a life and career beyond the 9 to 5 that allows you the freedom, flexibility and fulfillment that you've been dreaming of. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg. Now, let's get started on those dreams.
Hello there. I have a good one for you today. It's a new one and it's a good one, I promise. They're all good, but this one is in particular very powerful and useful and wonderful and valuable in every way. So we're talking about creating your own IP. I know, it sounds fancy, your intellectual property. What do I mean? Well, first of all, it's obviously not okay to steal, to copy other people's materials. Now, by all means, and we're all inspired by others, the classic reality, I suppose, is that everything has to some extent been inspired by something else, right? And there are frameworks that we can share and use and build on. But if we do that, first of all, ask permission if possible. And secondly, certainly give credit without exception. So even if you're adding your own spin. So for example, I use the Ikigai framework a lot. And I've used that in my Business Academy course that I finalised recently. I say recently now, by the time you listen, it's been a while. So my Business Academy course and in all my materials, I talk about the Ikigai. I've managed to track down kind of the original source, although even there, you know, there's a Spanish guy who's talked about it. There's someone else who kind of added purpose. There's Dan Buttner who talked about the blue zones and Ikigai. There are books on Ikigai. It's very unclear. And in fact, it even originally came from somebody else, etc., right? But do your best to credit. And certainly if you've actually taken it from somewhere, you need to at least, give credit to there, right? And in fact, as an aside, it doesn't matter so much, but I believe Instagram has recently announced that they are really putting more emphasis on original content. So if you're literally just sharing other people's posts, that's not going to do you any good, actually. But again, it's not okay to steal and copy other people's materials. It's illegal. It's not cool. It's also not very powerful for you as an individual. Now, when you're starting out, you might think as well that things are quite original. When I started sharing things, I did my coach training 2015, I think I graduated. And as many other coaches, I came out talking about my values or your values rather, and limiting beliefs and so on. Now, this is something that all coaches talk about because it's something we've learned about. They're super powerful things and concepts, but it's not that I've come up with this, right? So really important that and if I don't say that, then I apologize, but those are not my unique frameworks, right? I'm sharing either ubiquitous, very broadly available, everybody knows about them, everybody does them, or, specific things that I'm sharing and saying, this is from this person, and so on, right? So again, even if you're adding your own spin, state that you're inspired by, you're adapting from a particular source. But as I said, it's illegal, it's not good, it's not cool to copy, but more interestingly, it's not going to build your brand and business if you're only teaching what other people do. Now, I guess, and this is a bit controversial, this is part of the reason why I'm not so into the whole, what's it called? Is it MLM? I can't even think of what it's called now, the sort of pyramid marketing. But when you're becoming almost an associate too of someone else's brand, as a brand builder, marketer myself, I love creating my own things. That's sort of my, I want to say zone of genius, but certainly what I enjoy doing. I love coming up with frameworks and strategies and so on. And, just taking someone else's brand and executing is not particularly interesting for me. And so, that's a personal preference. MLM, I'm sure it's called MLM, isn't it? Membership level marketing or something like that. Also, you can become a certified consultant or minion or whatever, and apologies for being a bit demeaning. It's a great model for some people of someone else's framework. In fact, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe in the future, I'll have a certification program where people can learn my 5 pillars and my 3 I's and 3 E's and my 5 L's and so on, and they can go forth and teach my proprietary models, right? Maybe that is a model. Again, for me and for you when you're starting out as a solopreneur, freelancer, service-based business owner, it's far more powerful to create your own frameworks. We've been talking about building a personal brand, creating content, and standing out in a clustered market. This is what's going to help you stand out. Number one, it's going to crystallize your thinking. As I've been developing the course that I keep talking about, I've been consolidating, clarifying my models and frameworks. And now I'm crystal clear on my method. So I'm teaching the 5 pillars of building a life outside the 9 to 5, which I've been talking about for a couple of years at least. I've also been, even if I didn't have it sort of with that name, it's something that has evolved since I started 2015, 2016. And within that course, I've had to, I've got 5 modules for the 5 pillars. Each module has 4 steps. So for your definition of success, I go through your vision, your values, your purpose, and your balance in life. For your business model, we look at your criteria, we look at your clients, your products and services, your ecosystem. So I've had to, and that's taken honestly months. I was going back and forth and I was working with a graphic designer last year to really put those steps in place, and I kept tweaking things. Now I've consolidated, it's crystallized. I can share that with you here. It rolls off my tongue. And I'm super confident and have the conviction now that I can walk you through these 5 pillars. These are the things, we can see where the gaps are. That's so powerful. So again, I've crystallized my thinking through developing my own IP in the form of a course, but also in the models. I've even done little graphics myself and so on, which hopefully a graphic designer will sort out for me eventually. Secondly, it demonstrates your credibility and positions you as an authority. So if I can say, hey, these are the 5 things you need to build a business and a life outside the 9 to 5, I must know something about it because I'm bringing some really concrete, tangible guidance. I've put the thinking into it. You can see my thinking, right? And I become an authority on building that life outside the 9 to 5. If I share, and it was published in a Psychology's magazine article, my 5 L's model, you need to be balancing, looking at your goals in live, love, learn, lead, laugh. I know what I'm talking about. I have a model. I've, again, obviously put the thinking in. I'm sharing that expertise with you. Just like if I've written a book or if I'm running a podcast, suddenly you're sort of inheriting, what's the word? Sort of, winning, earning, I guess, a label, a credible label of being an expert. Because if they've written a book, even if it's not a great book, you've written a book, you obviously know something about it. You've written a podcast, you have this framework. So it demonstrates your credibility and positions you as an authority. And again, standing out in a clustered market. Number 3, it gives you something unique that no one else offers. If I'm a coach and I'm only teaching you the values, the limiting, or teaching isn't even what coach does, right? By the way, I should catch myself there. But if I'm only using other people's frameworks, that's a great start. And as a non-coach trained person, you will see huge value in that. And those are really powerful frameworks. But as you grow in experience and confidence, developing your own thinking of it on what you're doing is going to give you something unique, right? You're no longer just doing what every other coach is going. You have a unique spin. It's not better. That's really important to say. It could be better. It could be worse for different people, but it's different. And by the way, it also provides you really rich content for your website, for your marketing, for your paid programs, for a book, for a podcast. So for me, for example, I cycle through these 5 pillars, and I have done for a couple of years. So I, at the moment, do 2 months on each pillar. We've been doing personal brand now, June, July in 2022. That's the 4th pillar. I do then specific topics every week. I have created this course. As I said, if you go to onestepoutside.com/course, you can see I actually go through those modules on that page. So if you scroll down, I've talked through the sort of 4 steps under each of the 5 modules. I literally now have a course on the 5 pillars. I use those 5 pillars also more loosely in the Business Accelerator. And I am now, hopefully I've made a lot of progress since I first started talking about this and you're listening to this. I am writing my Outside the 9 to 5 book, which is, again, on those 5 pillars. And of course, I'm here talking to you on the podcast about the 5 pillars. So, hugely rich source of content for all my content. So, crystallize your thinking, demonstrates your credibility, it gives you something unique, and it gives you really rich content for your website, for your marketing, for your programs, etc. So how can you start doing this? Well, first of all, look at what you're currently doing. So whether you're doing one-to-one service or you're doing a group already, if it's bespoke, if it's standardized, what are the steps you take people through? I was lucky enough in the coach training I did, so it was with International Coach Academy. Instead of just taking on models like the Grow model and so on, which you might be familiar with from coaching or from even the corporate world, because I learned it at Procter & Gamble actually, we were encouraged, we were obliged, in fact, for our graduation, for our certification, to develop our own frameworks. We had to develop a power tool. So mine was growth versus comfort, hence this whole thing about one step outside your comfort zone. We also had to write a research paper, I think I want to call it. Or they called it rather, which was on blended consulting, which again is what I do. I blend business mentoring with broader life coaching. And I had a model. I can't now remember what those steps were, and they were relatively similar to grow, but it was something like setting your goals, working on your mindset, coming up with strategies and taking action, right? That's pretty standard, but I did put my own spin on it. And now, of course, I have the 5 pillars, which is more specific, because at the time I wasn't quite in this kind of building your business, escaping the 9-to-5 zone back in 2015. So coming back to you, what are you currently doing? If you're delivering work, have a look at, even if you're just starting out, what is it? What are the steps you're taking people through? What are the things people are always asking you for? It could be global steps. Like I have the 5 pillars. I've got Valentina who has the 8 leadership principles. What else? I have, you might have the 3 steps, the 3 pillars is great, I think, because kind of things that sit on it. You've got the 7 habits of highly effective people, of course, from Stephen Covey. So you've got the big picture framework and steps. But you've also got the smaller things. So you may have noticed, if you've been paying attention, the last few episodes, and if you've joined the course, the Business Academy, you'll see this too, I've started actually crystallizing some more sort of smaller scale models. So I've talked about the 3 I's. I've talked about the 3 E's. The 3 P's. I love the 3 I's, 3 P's. I've got shared my personal brand framework. I've got a sort of 3 circles for your personal brand, sharing what people see, etc., etc. So big global process, methodology, your proprietary framework, and then little specific things. Again, you can use things, I teach a time management webinar where we use the urgent, important matrix, which is called the Eisenhower matrix. I think, again, it comes from Stephen Covey, possibly. Again, the source is always a bit tricky. But if you can come up with your own 2x2 matrix or a Venn diagram or a star or a self-perpetuating virtuous circle, right? Potentially brief a designer, but I wouldn't get too concerned about that. You can in Canva choose one of the templates there already, but start developing your own little frameworks and visualize them. And it could be a pyramid, again, it could be a box, it could be whatever, circles. I use a lot of circles because my brand, if you look at my logo, it's one step outside, and my new graphic look and feel is a lot of circles, right? It's the comfort zone, that's the kind of thing we've gone with. Now, finally, it's not necessary, but you can look into registering the trademark, right? That's something I've started considering. I think, I'm less kind of about the vanity of that, but of course you do want to protect yourself. So I believe what you can do is put TM on any framework that you're sort of intending to register. And then, of course, once it's registered, you could put an R. If it's super critical, then, of course, by all means. But generally, if you've got the domain name, if you're sharing it, if you can prove, then I think, no legal advice coming from me here. But I think if you have that content and so on, I think you're relatively okay. And most importantly, you're going to keep evolving your thinking. So I'm not too precious about these things. I never think I can share too much. As I've said before, I'm constantly coming up with new things. I'm not too worried about people kind of being inspired by, as they say, but stealing the stuff I'm creating. I hope I'm not being naive. So creating your own IP. Remember, it's not okay to steal, to copy, and beyond the legal issue, it's not effective for you and your business and your brand. And as you create your own frameworks, it'll crystallize your thinking, it'll demonstrate your credibility, it'll give you something unique that no one else offers, and it will provide you really rich content for your marketing and your programs and so on. So look at what you're currently doing, look into visualizing it, perhaps look into registering the trademark, but don't be too worried about that, especially early on, because your thinking might evolve. If I'd gone to trademark the stuff I heard early on, that might not be relevant anymore. So I hope that's inspired you to begin, even if you're just starting out. By the way, this is not something you should be doing when you're, a massive guru. You need to be starting to do it now, and it'll really give you an edge, and you'll find that it's really powerful. It'll give you confidence as well as you start teaching, because you'll have such clarity on what you're providing, what you're sharing, the value you can bring. So I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now. If you're looking for help with getting clarity on who you are, what you stand for, what your personal brand should be, can be, then I can help you get clear on what you want to stand for, map out how to amplify your message, and step up as a true leader in your industry. So get in touch to book a call and we'll chat about how I can support you with your personal and professional goals. So that's at onestepoutside.com/call, onestepoutside.com/call.